B'Shem Hashem Naaseh v'Natzliach, shiur Torah, Baruch Hashem. Good to be back in sunny, Aventura. I always make mistakes. In Aventura, Baruch Hashem, at the Breslov Center, we have our weekly shiur, continuing our MUSSAR series. We are now up to 150. 150 in the series. We're actually still going to continue the same Mishnah, as I told you a couple of shiurim ago, that this Mishnah is a very long one, very extensive, and really you could make another 100 or more shiurim just on this Mishnah alone. The shiur tonight will also be for Refuah Shlema for Avi Mori, David Ben Esriya. May Hashem give him Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf. Also to Levana Bat Sarah, to Rav Ephraim Ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah Bat Anat, Doris Bat Jora, Dvora Bat Mercedes, Yochevet Bat Batya, Elisheva Chaya Bat Sarah. Anybody else I'm forgetting? So Hashem, they all have Refuah Shlema, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf. The story continues with, to give you a little bit of an update of what's going on with the horrible, very difficult test that was given to my family, Baruch Hashem, in these this last few days. What I told you that these criminals robbed and beat up my father, Shtabach Shemo La'ad, with a mamash seconds away from killing him. You find out more and more details. You see that how wrong we are about what we think is reality. There's a lot to learn from everything. The Mishnah in Avot that we have today talks about how one of the parts we're going to talk about, Be'ezrat Hashem, is about limud, learning. Learning is the first prerequisite that a person has to have in order to inherit Torah, in order to acquire Torah. Without learning, there's no Torah. No one is just simply going to be gifted Torah just because he's a very nice person, or just because he's very funny, or just because he's very generous. If you learn, you'll know. You don't learn, you won't know anything. But one of the requirements of learning is what we learned from David HaMelech, who says, Mikol melamdai iskalti. I learned from all of my students, teaching us today, 3,000 years later, that not only you're supposed to learn from your students per se, but you're literally supposed to learn from everything. Every single thing that happens in your life, you're supposed to learn from it. If you got to work on time, learn from that. You got to work late, learn from that. There was an accident on the highway, learn from that. Something bad happened to somebody you know, learn from that. Everything and anything that happens in your life is messages from Hashem Yitbarach, trying to talk to you in as clear a language as you need, and as clear a language as you deserve. The Rambam in Shmona Prakim writes a very extraordinary explanation of what was the difference between all of the prophets. Because the Gemara says, how many prophets did we have? We had over 1.2 million prophets that we know of throughout the history of the world. But if you look at the Tanakh, there are only 55 prophets mentioned. So the Chachamim ask, wait a minute, if there was 1.2 million prophets, but we only have the teachings and prophecies of 55, we're missing a few. We're missing a few of them. Just a few. What happened to the rest? What, their prophecy was wrong? Their prophecy was no good? The prophecy was outdated? What happened? So the Gemara explains that the Chachamim asked Hashem this question, and they actually got an answer, which is that the only prophecies that are mentioned in the Tanakh are the prophecies that are relevant forever. They're relevant forever. Meaning they're not only relevant to the time they made the prophecy, but they're relevant to our generation today, 3,000 years later, 2,000 years later, and so on and so forth. So over 1 million prophets that existed in the world, they brought prophecy. They brought the teachings and word of Hashem, but they only brought something that was pertaining to that particular time. And therefore Hashem said there's no need to mention His prophecy to you 2,000 years later. It's not going to help you. And that's why it's very, very surprising that anyone that wants to get a quick read of what the end of the world is going to look like, just go to either chapter 14 of Zechariah, or you could just go to Tzefania. Tzefania has 3 chapters in the entire book. And he's giving a description of what seems like the worst possible ending imaginable. And the Chachamim say he's describing the first Beit HaMikdash. And then some Chachamim say, no, he's describing the second Beit HaMikdash. And then some Chachamim say, no, he's describing the end of the world. That's what he's describing. 3 chapters, you get a reality check that whatever you thought was reality, you realize reality is quite different. What does it have to do with the story of my father and what happened? Is that the more time passes, the more you realize how corrupt the world is, and how all what we thought was straight is not even remotely close to being straight. How evil people can be. As evil as we thought they are, they could always surprise us and be even more evil. And you just get a reality check, where even if you had not such high hopes for humanity, humanity surprises you that they're even worse than you thought. So, what we know now is that earlier that day, my father, God bless him, Sheikhye, he went and did some business over there in, I believe it was downtown Los Angeles, met with a few goyim to try to do some business, went back and forth, and these people, they ended up coming to some type of no terms, then they get the terms. Long story short, but from the minute he left there and he went to the restaurant, apparently they saw in some cameras that there were some people following him the whole time. Meaning that this wasn't some happenstance. We're not even allowed to say such a thing, but the point is that even for the rational among us, that don't like to rely on Hashem, they always like to rationalize. Even if you try to rationalize, you start seeing, wait a minute, this is something that didn't just happen. This is something that was planned. They followed him, and it wasn't just a group of 2 or 3 people. It was 2 cars, at least 2 cars, maybe 3 cars full of people. And some people were waiting outside. There was one car that was interfering with traffic in order to free up space in order for the getaway car to go. So he was pretending like he was going to park in the same spot for 45 minutes. And then eventually when the car got away, he didn't need to park all of a sudden. And then there was another car with some people that a few of them went into the restaurant after my father. And how do you know they're involved? Because it's a man and a woman, but they're both actually sitting on the same side of the table, staring at my father the whole time. What kind of couple sits on the same side of the table? You sit usually opposites, if you're normal. And then you see somebody walking around outside, going back and forth, and he's getting text messages, most likely from the woman inside or the man inside, one of them, and then one guy is going back and forth staring. Mamash, it's like one of these horrible movies. One of these horrible movies that you think, oh yeah, it's a movie. Like, this stuff doesn't happen in real life. But it does, Rabotai. It does. It does happen and the horrible details of what happened after he left, it's hard for me to even think or say, but just the evil among people has no end. Evil among people literally has no end. But why do I tell you this again? You heard most of this, or at least some of it, is that you would think that in the land of the free that we call America, that we live in today, if you have pictures and videos of the criminals, immediately the news will take it, publicize it all over the world for you. The cops will take it, publicize it all over the world for you. Why? You have the pictures of the crime. You have pictures of the crime. We're not looking for evidence. This is the evidence. You know, usually if there's a crime scene, if they send people like they show you in the movies. I haven't seen movies in many years, but I'm saying, when I used to see movies, they used to send somebody, some Badash, some Inspector Gadget, some Sherlock Holmes, to start taking fingerprints of the tree and fingerprints of the chair, and he found a nail in the corner under the carpet, and that somehow is related to the murderer, and so on. All these movies that people think it's like real life. In real life, it's much, much worse. In real life, you know what happens in real life? They don't send anyone. That's real life. In real life, they don't send anyone unless they see that they're going to get something out of it. That's the reality. In the movies, they send somebody right away, and his whole team, and a special dog, and a woman that has a brain that's bigger than the city block, that she could figure out all types of things, and the man that could see the future, and all types of things. In the movies, they show you all these things, and everyone cares, and they can't sleep at night, and they're scared, and they're in danger. In real life, nothing happens. In real life, nothing happens. Unless it's going to affect my ratings. Unless it's going to affect my pocket. So you can go to the cops. And you can say, oh, okay, sir. Yeah. Wow. That's a tough break, sir. That's a tough break. Yeah, well, best of luck. We'll try to do what we can, sir. But if you want to come back tomorrow, maybe somebody else has nothing else to do with their life and is going to take your case. And they give you the runaround. You have to keep coming back every day. Hopefully somebody's going to take your case. But I have evidence. I have a movie of people almost killed me and took almost $500,000 worth of stuff. I have a movie of it. It's evidence. It's not even evidence. It's proof. It's just, yeah, they probably got away already. They already start giving you stories of how it's a loss. They help you lose hope. And then eventually tell you, yeah, you know what, maybe you should talk to the supervisor, whoever I've been talking to for the last 3 days. I thought, you're the supervisor. That was like, he keep coming back. No, the supervisor will come tomorrow. So you come tomorrow, and then the supervisor says, yeah, you know what, do me a favor. Can you send me your stuff? Because the stuff we have, it's not as good as your stuff. Like, your evidence is better than our work. We send cops. We spend $50,000, $100,000 on each cop, each investigator, maybe more, to go into the field to collect evidence. But it seems like your evidence is better than theirs, that you got for free. Can you send it to me and then come to my office again? And this, mamash, is the disaster of the system we have in play today called humanity. It has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with humanity. Why? Because people have gone to such a low level of moral ground that unless they have a vested interest that's superior than any other possibility, that's better than anything else available to them, they simply don't want to do their job. We're not asking them to do something better than their job. In fact, it would be ideal if they just simply did their job. But whether you hire a cop, or you hire a plumber, or you hire a handyman, or you hire a banker, or an insurance agent, or a stockbroker, or whatever you hire, the reality is, in today's world, most likely, he doesn't want to work, and he's just looking to just get paid even half the fee without doing any work. Why? He doesn't want to do it. No one wants to do their job. People want to live a free life. They just want to take the retainer but not do the work. Yeah, but I paid you $10,000 already to do $20,000 worth of work. Yeah, yeah, that was about a year ago. I already spent that money. Yeah, can you just find a different lawyer? Well, can you give me the $10,000 back? Well, yeah, I could, but I'm not because I spent it. So, can you just find a different lawyer? I'm like, yeah, but I would have to give him another $10,000 and the $10,000. Like, no, I don't want a new lawyer. I paid you already. Yeah, that's tough. I'm not really interested in the case. Why didn't you tell me a year ago before you took the $10,000? This is one case after another, one professional after another, after another. The level of dishonesty in this generation is truly despicable. The level of laziness in this generation is truly astonishing. No one wants to do work. No one wants to do their job. Unless it's something above and beyond. I'm going to get ratings. I'm going to get popularity. I'm going to get something. So you go to people, you tell them, listen, I just almost got killed, and I lost my life savings, a bunch of thugs. And just in case you're worried about hard work, I did the work for you. Here's the evidence. Yeah, can you come back tomorrow? I'm kind of busy. What are you busy with? I'm gonna go grab lunch. Me and the guys are going to Chuck E. Cheese. Like, shtabach shemolad, like you're a policeman, right? Do some work. No. But you think I'm complaining against police? It's not all policemen. It's some. But it's also against the plumber too. It's also against the air conditioner guy. It's also against the insurance guy. It's against anyone that's dishonest. And that's just a reality. Dishonesty has become standard and acceptable. In fact, the most celebrated people today are the ones that are the most dishonest. People celebrate the bad guy. People celebrate the name of the bad guy, not the good guy. Why? They're bored of the good guy. Good guys finish last. I want to be a bad guy. This is why crime is growing. This is why Nazism has grown rapidly in the United States, where what we thought was some dead, horrible past is brought up its ugly head over the last several years, literally the last 3 or 4 years. It's almost as if 1942 is back, just without the actual Holocaust itself. The amount of momentum that the American Nazis have and European Nazis have right now is not very much slower than what they had during World War II and before. You literally have armies of American, European Nazis, armies, thousands of them, gathering, doing all types of speeches and all types of protests all over the country, all over the world. Some of them even brought up new leaders. They call it, instead of calling him Hitler, they call the moron, whatever his name is. And they say, hail him, and hail him, and hail, and hopefully they'll go to hell. But the point is that this is alive and well today. This is alive and well. This is the reality of today. If you don't know, just get your head out of the cave that you've been in, and you'll see it's very much alive and well. You think that maybe your last hopes would be to maybe we should go to the media. The media should publicize this. It's a crime, right? Send us a letter. We'll evaluate it. What's there to evaluate? Someone almost died. They stole a bunch of money. What do you need to evaluate? We have to evaluate if we're going to get ratings. We have to evaluate whether the story is going to touch the hearts of people, to make sure that their hearts are so touched, they don't turn the channel to a different channel, and they stick around and watch the commercials that are paying the bills. They're right, but they're wrong. They're right, but they're wrong. Yes, TV and radio and media in general, it's all for ratings. It's right. That's the way the business is. The ratings, you have to sell commercials. It's right, but it's wrong. And you realize, Rabotai Yekarim, that our Gemara, that's almost 2,000 years old, has been right all along, never that we question it, chas v'shalom. But literally, as time elapses, we see that the ancient Torah that we have, the old Torah that we have, the far, far away Torah that we have, has never been so close, has never been so new, has never been so fresh, and has never been so right. The Gemara in Masechet Sotah, page 49, B, says, what are you going to have before Mashiach? You're going to have all types of rude people, hating the truth, hating Torah, terrible generation, inflation, problems with finances, earthquakes, wars, the worst disasters you can imagine. What are you going to have to rely on those days? And the Gemara answers, En al mi lismoch ela el avinu shebashamayim. We will know that it's the end. How? We will have nothing to rely on other than Avinu Shebashamayim, other than our Father in heaven. You can't rely on your stock portfolio. You can't rely on your IRA account and your 401k that they promised you. You can't rely on your siblings. You can't rely on your parents. You can't rely on your friends. You can't rely on your job. You can't rely on anyone other than Hashem Yitbarach. Your siblings may be wonderful people. Your parents may be amazing. But still the Gemara doesn't mention them. It mentions Avinu Shebashamayim. It mentions God. Why? Because the situation in the world is going to be so terrible. Before Mashiach comes, everyone literally has to watch for themselves. Everyone has to just do whatever they can. Just save yourself. Mamash, mayhem is coming. Save yourself. How are you going to save yourself? What, are you going to save some money? Your money's going to be worthless. We talked about it on Sunday. What, are you going to make a YouTube channel? YouTube's not going to work. No electricity. We talked about it on Sunday also. What are you going to do? Call the cops? They're going to be bigger criminals than the criminals. Why? Because they have guns. Who are you going to talk to? Sefer Torah. It's the only thing you have. Sefer Torah. You learn Torah, it's going to give you the instructions of what to do when all else fails. People are starting to get worried today about the status or the situation that's happening in the world financially. You have some major old-timers coming back into the light, publishing books, going on news stations, telling people that the stock market bubble is officially over, the end is near, and everyone should run to save themselves. Where were they before the bubble hit a peak? But that's a different story. And people are starting to worry. Why? Because their system got shook up a little bit. But I bet you that 99% of people will do nothing with this information. In fact, they're going to go out there and they're going to go borrow more money, take more money that they have, and invest even more. Why? Because they're going to see, no, it's an opportunity. How do I know? It's human nature that repeats itself over and over and over again, because no one wants the party to end. And as soon as people say, no, but the lights are off though. Okay, so we'll party without the lights. Yeah, but the roof is falling. Okay, who says we need a roof? We start making exceptions. This is what's happening right now. We see that the world is changing to such an extent. We see that Hashem is running the world differently than normal. Things are happening faster. Disaster is getting bigger and bigger. Whether it be natural disaster, or moral disaster, or any other type of disaster in between, you're seeing things that are just unusual happening in the world. And the reality is, Rabotai Karim, is that anyone with a little bit of sechel, a little bit of sense in their mind, says, well, you know what, times are different. Maybe I need to pay attention. Maybe I need to review certain things. In Parashat Shavua, Parashat Vayigash, Yaakov Avinu does something extraordinary, something unusual, something that is, if it was a movie, this would be the climatic point. in the movie that everyone didn't expect. Before he dies officially, he has a meeting with Yosef. And he says to Yosef to bring his sons so he can give them blessings. And then he says to Yosef, Ephraim and Menashe, KIRUV and Shimon Yuli. That Ephraim and Menashe, the two sons of Yosef HaTzadik, now they're going to be to Yaakov, they're going to be to him just like Reuven and Shimon. What does it mean they're going to be like Reuven and Shimon? Reuven and Shimon are very alive and well. You can't just replace them. What do you mean they're going to be like them? He says, Yosef, until now, you were a tribe by yourself. But now we're going to split you into two tribes. One for Menashe and one for Ephraim. There's no tribe of Yosef. There's tribe of Ephraim, there's tribe of Menashe. Now, this is a very nice gesture. Thank you very much, Abba. But it's against the rules. Why is it against the rules? Because why didn't you make all of the other grandkids also their own tribes? Reuven had some sons. Shimon had some sons. Yehuda had some sons. Everybody had some sons. Some more, some less. Why didn't you make it 70 tribes? 80 tribes. Nice, 80 tribes. One of us would make it. But no. Only Yosef and his children had this merit. And you can't say it's because Yosef was in a position of power. It's not true. Why? Because everyone knows the prophecy says Mashiach comes from Yehuda. Meaning that with all the kol hakavod to Yosef HaTzadik, Mashiach's not coming from him. Mashiach is coming from Yehuda, meaning the king is Yehuda. It's not Yosef. But the Chachamim show us something extraordinary that will give us a little bit of perspective of the Parashah and how it relates to our world today. When Yaakov first heard that Yosef was alive, it says he didn't believe his children. He didn't believe his sons. He didn't believe them. Now, you're sure you understand, each one of the Shvatim was like a Malach Hashem, was an angel. In fact, the angels were like flies next to them. The angels were like flies next to the Shvatim. So what do you mean you would believe a 10-year-old stranger comes to you and says, hey, Mr. Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov, yeah, by the way, your son's alive. You believe him. Why? Why would he say it otherwise? So why wouldn't you believe the biggest tzaddikim in the world? He didn't believe it because he says your message didn't make any sense. On one hand, you said that Yosef is alive. But the very next sentence, you said that he's also the viceroy of Egypt. He's the king of Egypt. It doesn't make any sense for him to be alive and to be the viceroy of Egypt. Why not? Why not? Because Yaakov Avinu, he didn't care if Yosef is physically alive. The horse is physically alive. The cockroach, physically alive. The fly flying around, physically alive. Who cares about that kind of life? Yaakov is asking, is Yosef Chai? Is he alive? Meaning, is he still tzaddik? Is he still shomer Torah and mitzvot? They said, yeah, he's alive. Wait, how could he be alive? Shomer Torah and mitzvot, but at the same time he's the king of the most impure place on earth. Even if he's a tzaddik and he's not a criminal and he doesn't take bribes and all that stuff, fine. But he's surrounded with so much tum'ah, how could he not get infected? So he said, I don't believe you. When did he start believing them? When they started telling them, oh, by the way, Abba, so you see, he brought us the agalot. What's the agalot? The carriages, to symbolize your last shiur you had with him. What shiur did I have with him, Yaakov says? The shiur you had about the red cow. And also what you do with, if there's a murder, you have to chop off the head of an egel, and so on and so forth, because whoever's land was wherever the murder was. Details of the shiur, I'll try to save you some time. Point is, he sent him the carriages as a symbolic of the last shiur they had together 22 years ago. At that moment, Yaakov said, oh, if he still remembers the shiur we had 22 years ago, that must mean only one thing. He has been going over it over and over and over again for 22 years. He's alive. Because if you're going over your Torah, that means you continue to learn more things from it. If you learn more things from it, you're going to do more things from it. That is the secret of a Talmid Chacham. Go over and over and over and over again. And at that moment, Yaakov said, now he's alive, I'm ready to die just after I see him. But then he goes to Egypt, and he sees the sons, and he decides to throw a curveball here. He says, wait a minute, not only I'm happy to see Yosef, but after some years of being together, I'm going to decide that his sons are going to be part of the tribes. Why? Because he saw that not only was Yosef a tzaddik, that he continued to learn Torah, but he also continued to teach Torah to his children, because his two sons were also tzaddikim. And that way, that's the reason why Yaakov said, we have to add them to the tribes. Because if they could be tzaddikim, despite the tum'ah of the world, despite the impurity and the filth of the world, they could still be tzaddikim. They're not going to be falling for the peer pressure. They're not going to start going to places they're not allowed to because their friends are going. They're not going to start inhaling things they're not allowed to inhale because their friends are doing it and their parents are doing it and this one is doing it. They are simply doing what Hashem said, not what everybody else said. If they can do that individually, in this place, each one of them deserves a spot as a shiur by himself, as a tribe by himself. Why? Because each one has his own life. They had a test that the children of Reuven and Shimon and Dan and Naphtali didn't have. Why? They all grew under my roof, Yaakov. You grow under Yaakov, you're going to go sin next to Yaakov, he's going to kill you. Who's going to sit next to Yaakov? But you grow up next to Paro and you don't sin. We need you to have a tribe of yourself. We need a person like that. This is Mussar for all of those people that want to blame their past and why they didn't become a rabbi, why they didn't become a tzaddik. Oh, I didn't grow up in a religious family, I didn't grow up knowing this stuff. I didn't grow up around this stuff. So what? Neither did the children of Yosef. In fact, they had a worse past than you. In fact, they had a worse surroundings than you. Why? You at least have a shul 20 minutes from your house. They had a church, and another church, and another church, and another church. Only churches they had. Church of Avodah Zarah here, Church of Avodah Zarah here, all types of churches they had. They didn't have any Jews next to them. None. They were the keilah. You at least have a keilah. You have a kosher market. You have kosher food. You have kosher books. You can all order on the internet. Reality is, the Mishnah tells us, Shgagat Talmud Ola Zadon. If a mistake against the Torah is made, meaning if somebody makes a sin accidentally, but it's only accidentally because he didn't learn the material, then in Shamayim, they turn that accident into a purposeful sin. And the reason why is because even though you made the sin accidentally, your lack of learning was on purpose. Instead of learning, you went to the casino. Instead of learning, you were playing basketball or watching basketball. Instead of learning, you went and hang out with your friends or watch the show so you don't miss an episode. That's on purpose. So the sin's on purpose too. So here the Mishnah is telling us that גדולת תורה יותר מן הכהונה ומן המלכות, שהמלכות נקנית ב-30 מעלות, והכהונה נקנית ב-24, והתורה נקנית ב-48 דברים, ואלו הן. The Torah is even greater than the priesthood or royalty. It's better to be a Talmid Chacham, the Torah is telling us here, that knows Torah, than even to be the biggest rabbi in the world, the Kohen Gadol. It's even better than being the biggest king. For royalty is acquired through 30 prerogatives, we covered last week, 30 different gifts that the king has to, 30 different things he has to deal with. Some of them are benefits, some of them are mesirut nefesh, meaning he has to sacrifice for them. But the point is, 30 different prerogatives that have to do with kinghood. You want to be a king, you have to have these things, these 30 things. But there's also 24 to be a Kohen. 24 gifts to be a Kohen. 24 special gifts that are being given to a Kohen. But the Torah, it says, that's greater than both, is only acquired by means of 48 qualities. Now, for anyone that thinks that, oh, the Torah is greater because it has more. 48 is bigger than 30. 48 is bigger than 24. That's why the Torah is greater. Wrong. That's not the reason why the Torah is greater. The reason we're going to go over is because you'll see that first and foremost, we covered last week, that in order to be a king, your father has to be a king. In order to be a Kohen, your father has to be a Kohen. Meaning it's not something that you simply get elected to do. It's not even something that you can do unless you were born into a specific family. So it's technically not even your choice of whether you're going to be a Kohen or not. It's not even your choice of whether you're going to be a king or not. But it is your choice of whether you're going to wear the crown of Torah or not. And the reason why is because the 48 steps of getting the crown of Torah are not the same. They're not simply gifted to you. There are things you have to acquire. No one's giving you anything. You have to acquire these things. So first and foremost, we should see that just in the holy language of Hebrew, there's no such thing as we just throw numbers in the air and they have no meaning. We just create a word like they do in different languages and it has no meaning. So just so you have a little tiny hint. The ultimate tool for Torah is your moach, your brain. If you have a defective brain, unfortunately, you're not going to succeed in being a Talmid Chacham. This is a prerequisite tool. You have to have a brain. You also have to have other things. You have to have persistence, consistency, and so on and so forth. We'll go over, but the point is that you have to have a brain. Why? Because if you're mentally challenged, you may be a nice person, you may have some decent midot, but you're never going to be a Talmid Chacham. Unless Hashem changes nature for you. But then you're not the same person anymore. So we can't really argue about that. We have to talk about normal things. Number one tool is your moach. Number one tool is your brain. Because your brain is the tool that will receive all the information. It's also the tool that will decide what to do with it. But to give us a tiny hint of how this moach is specifically designed for Torah. It's not designed for you to become a fantastic scientist. It's not designed for you to go become some great speaker about the philosophical issues you think are important in this generation. This brain of yours was given to you to learn Torah. How do we know? Small, tiny hint. The numerical value of the letter mem, which is the first letter of the word moach, is 40. The numerical value of the second letter of the word moach is chet. Numerical value is 8. Total of 40 plus 8. Who wants to volunteer? Don't all do it at the same time. I can't hear you. 48. 48. What are these 48? 48 prerequisites, prerogatives that are necessary in order to get the crown of Torah. Now, all of us have heard that Torah keneged kulam, limud Torah keneged kulam. Learning Torah is like you're fulfilling all of the mitzvot. But sometimes you see somebody learning Torah and they're like playing with their phone at the same time. They're playing with the phone, they're talking to their friend, but they have the book open. And they come back after an hour and a half home. Yeah, honey, what a shiur we had. What'd you learn? I don't remember really right now, but we had an amazing shiur. What'd you eat? Oh, we had great cookies and cakes. Cookies and cakes he remembers. The cookies and cakes he remembers. The salads he remembers. He can even tell you how he felt inside when the lettuce hit the pellet on his tongue. And he says, honey, I love you so much, I wish you were there. I felt bad you weren't there. What a shiur we had. What shiur? What shiur? You don't remember anything from the shiur, but you remember the salad. So you telling me that this guy that learned the shiur, that he remembers the salad and the cookies, he gets the merit as if he fulfilled the entire Torah? Does this make any sense? It would be a mistake. Not possible to make mistakes. So, Rabotai Karim, Gemara Masechet Kiddushin, page 30, says, the Yetzer Hara is destroyed by Torah. Any time a person learns Torah, he destroys his Yetzer Hara. He destroys the Yetzer Hara that's telling him to read a book in the middle of a shiur instead of listening to the shiur. He's destroying the Yetzer Hara that's making him play with the phone in the shiur instead of listening to the shiur. He's destroying the Yetzer Hara that makes him think about girls while he's praying. He's destroying the Yetzer Hara that makes him want to go to the casino instead of going to the kollel. He's destroying the Yetzer Hara. He's destroying the evil inclination within him by learning Torah. What kind of Torah, the Gemara says? Torah that's full of struggle. Torah that's full of mesirut nefesh. Torah that's full of sacrifices. What does that mean, full of struggle? You have a headache, you still learn. You have financial aches, you still learn. Your wife can't stop yelling at you. You continue to learn. Your kids don't want to go to school. You learn. Kids failed at school. You're depressed. You don't even know what to do tomorrow because the school kicked them out. You still learn. You have no money in the bank. Rent is due. Mortgage is due. Ishtabach shimo. I'm learning even more now. That's the learning that's against the title. It's not just you come to a shiur and play with a book and embarrass yourself in public by looking like a fool, playing with the phone in the middle of a shiur Torah. It's better you don't come. Because you're walking chilul Hashem if you do such things. It's better you don't come to a shiur if you're going to distract other people with your behavior. Or some people, they laugh every 2 seconds, even though nothing's funny. Better you don't come to the shiur. Go home. Go eat some donuts. Eat the salad with the other guy. But if you're going to come to a shiur and learn Torah, and you're going to think, and you're going to take notes, and you're going to try to figure out how could I apply this to my life, then you have some serious Torah. But even more so if it was hard for you to come. It's late at night. It's far away from home. You have to travel a whole 40 minutes. Chas v'shalom. 40 minutes you had to travel to a shiur Torah. In the old days, they would travel 40 days. We barely travel 40 minutes. You know how many people tell me they watch the shiurim online from Florida? Now, Baruch Hashem, we have people all the way from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe, there's people watching shiur Torah. I have people in the Philippines watching shiur Torah. In Australia, it's a 21-hour flight. They watch the shiur Torah. So them, I don't expect Arthur from Australia to come every Tuesday on a plane 21 hours to come to the shiur Torah. Why? It's 21 hours. He may like the shiur Torah, but it's 21 hours and it's expensive. But what about the person that lives 20 minutes from here, that lives 40 minutes from here, that lives an hour from here? What do they ask? Is it going to be on live Facebook? Well, it could be live if you attend. You're 40 minutes away. Oh, it's so far, and it's so late. Wait, but you just asked me if it's going to be live. That means you're going to be watching, which means you can't be sleeping. Yeah, but it's so far. How far is your job from your house? Oh, it's an hour and a half. Oh, so for that you travel an hour and a half. For work, you're going to travel 40 minutes. But for Torah, no. This, Rabotai, it's not a complaint. It's a reality check for us that we have to ask ourselves every day, how much do I really want Torah? How much do I really want it? Is it, I only want it when it arrives to me on a silver platter, comfortable with some cookies and beastly on the side, and maybe that delicious salad it keeps mentioning? Or I'm going to go after it even if it's on top of a mountain and it's really cold outside. How much do I want Torah? Am I chasing it like Shlomo HaMelech said, like it's treasure? Or am I chasing really just to see if it's the next thing on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm chasing the play button because that's the most I'm willing to do. That's my Mesirut Nefesh, Kol Harav. I can't do it anymore. I'm pressing the button. That's it. 15 minutes, I'm done. This, Rabotai Karim, this is what we have to ask ourselves. Why? Because if you want Torah, then you could expect the Torah to want you. And the results will follow. But if you treat Torah like it's a third, it's like a shifcha, it's like some ozeret bait, some cleaning lady that comes to your house once a month, it's not even the main cleaning lady, it's the backup cleaning lady. You barely even say hi to her because you have no midot, but you say, oh, she's going to clean the bathrooms. She's going to clean the bathrooms. Make sure you do it before I get home. That's how you treat the Torah. You don't want to say hi to her. You barely show up. Why are you surprised that you're 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years learning and haven't progressed a single centimeter? You've been reading books for 20 years. You're still the same Am Haaretz you started. Still ignorant, still know nothing. Because Resh Lakish, the ultimate Baal Tshuva, tells us in the Gemara Masechet Brachot, if you want Torah, you have to be willing to risk your mamash life on the line for Torah. For what? Shiur Torah, Sefer Torah, Mishnah, anything Torah. Risk your life for it. That's how much you have to go after it. Oh, come on, now you're exaggerating. Okay, so you're not going to get it. If you think that's an exaggeration, you're not going to get it. This is part of the requirements of being a Talmid Chacham. This is the requirement of living a life of Torah and knowing that your children are going to be okay as a result of the Torah you're teaching them. Where even if you yourself don't become a Talmid Chacham because you woke up too late, but your kids will be. Why? Because they see your sacrifice. If they see that all you do is make sacrifices for Torah, you sacrifice your diet, you sacrifice your friends, you sacrifice your family, you sacrifice everything, your job. You're making constant sacrifices. Your schedule. They see your whole life is full of sacrifices for a single thing. For who? For Torah. All they see is sacrifices. They say, oh, this must be important. I'm going to check it out. This must be the most important thing in the world. Why? No one in their right mind will continue to make sacrifices for something that's not important. But if you tell them, no, but I wrote a check and I bought this and I bought this. Okay, so a lot of people bought this and bought that. I bought tomatoes also. Doesn't mean I love them. You buy meat. Doesn't mean you love the cow. You love the way it makes you feel after you eat it. The reality is, Rabotai, is that buying things is not going to show sacrifice. What sacrifice? Your whole life. Your schedule. Your comfort. And so on and so forth. So this Torah is not going to come to us in an easy way. Anyone that's expecting an easy ride to inherit Torah is expecting something that's not Torah. The Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin says to us the Torah that everyone keeps talking about, that when you learn it, it's as if you're fulfilling all of the mitzvot. That's only the Torah that comes through struggle. You're tired, you're in pain, you're not focused, you're not really sure what's right or what's left. Learn at that time. That Torah is much, much more valuable than the Torah that comes with beastly and cookies and maybe some salad. Much more valuable. You have stress, perfect time to learn Torah. You have problems, amazing time to learn Torah. You're in pain, even better. That's the time to learn Torah. Oh, you're really tired? Wow. Definitely the best time to learn Torah. But as long as you stay awake, because if you're tired, you go to sleep, you didn't learn. Succeeding to overcome the obstacles. You do that, that's how you inherit Torah. That's how you inherit Torah. But the Yetzer Hara is going to tell you, nah, come on, no, this guy is from like ancient history. He thinks he's still in Mount Sinai. He thinks he's still in Mount Sinai, this guy. We don't need to learn Torah. Today, Hashem made Torah very easy for us. Just take your phone, go to Torah Anytime and Torah Box and all of the other websites and BezatHashem.org and just press play, put it in the background with a little music too. Have some cookies, as long as they're kosher, but if they're not, just go to Yonatan Levi Rasha, and he'll tell you it's kosher, and you can enjoy yourself while you're learning, while you're working, and trading in the stock market, and bitcoins, and you're doing everything. Torah is in the background. Your future will be in the background. It's not the way Torah is learned. Arav Miponovich, Alav Shalom, had over 1,000 avrechim. 1,000 avrechim in his yeshiva. 1,000 avrechim. It's hard to understand what 1,000 people learning Torah looks like until you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, it's a sight to be seen. You should go to Yerushalayim, you should go to Lakewood, you should go to some of these places that mamash have 1,000 people or more learning Torah. It's something out of the world. Now he had a yeshiva of 1,000 people, mamash learning Torah, not smoking cigarettes outside. But one day, Rabbi Ponovich comes in, and he sees that 998 are learning Torah, and 2 are in the front, right in the area in front, debating among each other. What do you think? One is telling the other. What do you think the Yetzer Hara is doing right now that he sees there's 1,000 people learning Torah? He's probably killing them, right? The other one says, not only is it killing him, Yetzer Hara is struggling right now, doesn't know what to do with himself. Mashiach's probably coming any day because of the 1,000 people that are learning Torah. And the other one says, yeah, but the Yetzer Hara, he's strong. He's strong, the Yetzer Hara. Maybe he has 1,000 people learning kfirah, and they go back and forth. And Rav Miponovich says, if you really want to know what the Yetzer Hara is thinking, just continue talking about the shtuyot and nonsense that you're talking about instead of learning Torah. Instead of learning Torah, you're talking about nonsense. What is he doing and how is he doing? Go learn Torah. Same argument applies to people that want to know the future. Whether it's what's going to happen before Mashiach comes, or what's going to happen after Mashiach is going to come, or different types of things that have no effect on their life. Go learn Torah. Start with the practical part, the stuff that will affect your life. Then grow from there. The halachot that affect your life every day. How to conduct yourself, how to go to the bathroom, how to eat, what to say when you eat, before, after, when to pray, how to pray, and so on and so forth. How to conduct your day-to-day life. That's already a few years worth of learning. On top of that, you add midot, character traits. You learn mussar, how to behave every day while you're learning, before you're learning, during your learning, after you're learning. That's a lifetime of learning. If you focus on the practical aspects of learning, then you're learning. If you focus on the things that are not practical, most likely your Torah is going to the Yetzirah. It's not going to Shamayim. Because there are some people, the Ramban, Nachmanides says, that they could learn the entire Torah. They know all the laws. And they know all of the leniencies. And all of the stringencies. And they know everything. And still they arrive in Shamayim and they say, you are called Naval, Birshut Torah. You're called despicable by the Torah. In the name of the Torah. Torah is calling you despicable. Why? You didn't learn Torah to fulfill it. You learned Torah to manipulate it. You learned Torah in order to figure out a way of how you could fulfill all of your evil desires. So you looked for gray area. You learned the law not because you wanted to defend the law. You learned the law because you wanted to beat the law. You know, there are two types of lawyers. There's a lawyer that is looking to, if they still exist in the world, that is looking to defend the law. And there's a lawyer that's an expert in beating the law. Finding some type of leeway, some type of a gray area, some type of doubt, some type of loophole within the system that says, yeah, Your Honor, you're right about A, B, C, D, and E. You're right about all of it. The knife, the this, the that, all of the things you're right. Problem is, the papers weren't served the right way. And the police never read him his rights to be silent. And so on and so forth, other types of nonsensical loopholes, case dismissed. And once dismissed, you can't have another trial. There's no double prejudice, no double jeopardy, no more. Done, finished. You want to try him again? Find a new charge. Murderer, rapist, pedophile, thief, all of that is walking back in the street. You know how many of those people are in the world? Do you think it's his fault? You think, whose fault is it? It's not the judge's fault. It's not the criminal's fault even. Whose fault is it? It's the lawyer. The lawyer's fault that his whole job in order to collect more and more money was to find a way to beat the system. All of the people that person is going to hurt, murder, rape, steal from, all go to the deen of that lawyer. Imagine what kind of gehenom they're going to have for this lawyer. Now, that's why you never recommend for a Jew to become a criminal lawyer. If you ever want to become a lawyer, if you have to be a lawyer because you have some type of desire for it, you should be a business lawyer at best. Criminal law is not something that Jews should ever mess with because there's just too much risk. Even business law is very risky. Even business law is risky. People don't understand that how easy it is to lose your olam haba when it comes to business. It's very easy. Now, one thing that everyone knows is that a Jew is not allowed to lend another Jew money and charge him interest. Not allowed. If he lends another Jew money, and that Jew is a shomer Torah and mitzvot, shomer Shabbat, he's not allowed to charge him interest. But Hashem pays. Hashem pays really well for people that lend money to other Jews without interest, because that person is considered a partner with Hashem. A partner with Hashem. So now, it's very easy to lose Olam Haba by not following this rule. Why? Because Hashem says, if you lend another Jew money, you charge him interest, and that Jew is a shomer Torah and mitzvot, he observes Shabbat, Mashiach comes, you're not going to see him. Resurrection of the dead, you're not waking up. Olam Haba, yours was destroyed with the rest of the Nazis. Why? Because you lend some Jew money and you charge him interest one time. That's how easy it is to lose Olam Haba, Rabotai. Do you know how many businessmen do this unintentionally? I'll give you an example, something that's done in business every day. Somebody wants to do a deal. He says, listen, I have this merchandise I can buy for $100,000. I already know it's worth $150. I could sell it for $150, but I don't have, what's the problem? It's a good deal. You make 50% on your money. I wish every day was like this, you say, right? Problem is, I don't have the money. I have the seller willing to sell me $100,000 worth of stuff. I have the buyer, which the seller obviously doesn't know, that's willing to buy the stuff for $150. Meaning I have $50,000 profit in the bank right now. What don't I have? Anything else in the bank to make this deal happen. So what do? You go to your friend. Hey, Mr. Friend, help me out here. Lend me the $100,000. I know you're not going to lend me for free. So what are you going to do? I'll sell it. I'll buy it. Take your $100,000. Buy the merchandise for $100. I will sell it for $150. I'll give you $120 back. Olam Haba, gone. This is a common business deal that's done every single day. Unless you have a shtar iska that specifically goes over all the details, and it's really an investment and not a loan, and so on and so forth, a person can literally lose their Olam Haba for something they do 5 times a week. Yes?
What happens if it's a mortgage?
Not following.
It's a mortgage instead of an investment. Mortgage. Same thing?
Not following. Give me the whole example.
Let's say someone lends money to somebody else, an aspect of to have property involved, that's part of the claim, but they're lending money in the period of 1 year.
Uh-huh.
And at the end of the year, if that person doesn't pay that money back, then they take the house and he goes to court and they start getting him for payments.
Okay, so if the person lends money to buy property, or uses the property as collateral, now if he's allowed to use the property as collateral, no problem. But if when he pays him back the money, he has to pay him the money that he borrowed plus interest, that person has lost his Olam Haba. The whole point is not that you're not allowed to lend money, and it's not that you're not allowed to borrow money. They're not allowed to charge interest. So this is something that is a very simple example. I'll give you another example. The Gemara in Masechet Shabbat warns cheap people. Cheap people can lose their Olam Haba very easily. Who says it? Hillel HaZaken. Hillel HaZaken says cheap people can lose their Olam Haba over a piece of bread. How so? He says a cheap person, he's not only not going to donate and not going to give and all of that. No, not only that, when there is any type of transaction, whenever he actually does any favor for somebody, he's only doing it because it's really a loan. It's not a favor. He's only going to give him a piece of bread because he's going to expect that person to give him bread back when he needs it, or even if he doesn't need it. He says that's the problem with the cheap person, because he is calculating how much did he give me for my wedding, and that's how much I'm going to give him for his wedding. He's calculating how much did they give my children, that's how much I'm going to give his children. It's all loan. People do this all the time. Oh, I'm not going to his son's wedding. Why? He didn't go to my son's wedding. Yeah, but he was in Israel. He couldn't come. Doesn't make a difference. This problem. He didn't come. Oh, how come you only gave him $100, but you brought 7 people from your family to eat, just the food your family ate at the wedding or bar mitzvah was $1,000. You gave the guy $100. Better off you didn't come. Why does the guy have to lose $1,000 because of you? Oh, because you only gave me $100 for me. Yeah, but you were 13 the last time you had a party. So he gave you, as a 13-year-old, he gave you $100. You can't calculate the same thing. But this is the type of calculations cheap people do. Sometimes they have books. What he gave, what he gave, what she gave, what he gave. People do this all the time. Now what's the problem with this? Hillel HaZaken says they can lose Olam Haba for such behavior. Why? He says if a cheap person gives a piece of bread, meaning the very basic requirement of living, gives a piece of bread. Now in those days, you didn't go to Entenmann's and buy pre-sliced bread. You made bread at home. You give you a piece of bread, he says, listen, I'm not giving it to you, I'm lending it to you. It's not a gift, I'm lending you the bread. I'm not rich. Whenever you have the money, give me the bread back. I want bread. So now, the person that's giving him a piece of bread back, he's also not going to Entenmann's or Arnold's that used to be kosher. He's making it himself. Making it himself now to make this bread. What's the problem? No 2 loaves are the same. Which means, if his loaf is even 2 or 3% bigger, he's returning it to him. A loaf that's a little bit bigger, but he doesn't care. He himself doesn't care. Like, it's a little bit bigger than what he gave me, but the difference is so small, like, I don't care. Hillel HaZaken says, yeah, but in Shamayim they do care. That you are now paying the cheap person interest. You're okay. He's not. He's not okay because he's cheap. He calculates the percentages. He was never going to give you the extra 3%. So in Shamayim, he's judged as if he charged interest. Yeah, but I didn't mean to pay him interest. Doesn't make a difference. He does. He gets punished for being cheap. Hashem Yerachem. Hashem Yerachem, Rabotai. This can affect a person today. How? People that go to bar mitzvahs and they give a little bit more than they gave him, or a little less. What? It's like literally like you borrowed the money for a year from the last simcha you had, and we're giving him the same amount or more or less for his simcha. You start calculating such things, you have a serious problem in Shamayim. You want to see it? Gemara Masechet Shabbat, I believe it's page 148, 149. It's a whole sugya about it. Dangerous to be cheap. Dangerous to be cheap. Why? Person can lose a Olam Haba. Shem Yerachem. This you're not going to know unless you learn. People think they give money. No, I'm the most generous guy in the neighborhood. I give everybody money. Yeah, but you charge them interest. You're not doing anybody any favors. So, the Torah niknet ב-48 dvarim. The Torah is acquired by these 48 qualities, and before it goes into the qualities, we learn from Rav Yaron Reuven something very interesting when you delve into the word. The Torah niknet ב-48 dvarim. Rav Yaron Reuven, alav hashalom, says, look at the wording that Chazal used here. It's not saying, like, for example, that the Malchut is bought through having these 30 different things. The Keunah, 24 different things. The Torah, 48 different things. But here the Torah is also treating the Torah in something slightly different, where it says the Torah really is not something that you could inherit like Malchut or Keunah. The Torah literally has to be acquired. A kinyan. Kinyan meaning it's a technical term that's used anytime property changes hands between owners. So this clearly is implying that just as a given item can be acquired only through its designated method of acquisition, so it is with the Torah. It can only be acquired through these 48 means. There is no other way to get Torah. Rav Yaron Reuven, alav hashalom, is telling us something that is paramount in order to understand this Mishnah correctly. Everyone thinks today that they have their own way of doing things. No one wants to listen to the old-fashioned way. Everyone wants to reinvent the wheel. Rabbi Yaron Reuven is telling us that's the problem. If you want to acquire Torah, you have to realize there is no other way other than these 48 steps. Like if you're doing something and it's not one of these 48 steps, you're not acquiring Torah. You may be acquiring somebody else or something else. It's definitely not Torah. It's like, yeah, but look, I learned. Okay, you learned, but it's probably not Torah. It sounds like it maybe, but it's not it. Plenty of people have books in their house. Even the Christians have Jewish books. Doesn't mean that they're learning Torah. Torah can only be acquired through these 48 steps. Now, anytime a person acquires one more step, Hashem in essence pays him a little bit more Torah. It's not that he has to acquire all 48 steps in order for him to eventually get Torah. It's all happening at the same time. You acquired one more step, Hashem is giving you a little more Torah. You acquired a second step, a little more Torah. As it's not that you have to get all 48 and then you'll get Torah. Why? Because then no one would ever get Torah. So each step that you get more Torah, more access to more Torah. Which shows us that the 48 kinyanim, the 48 things that you have to acquire, are not gifted by the Torah. It's not something that you get by the Torah itself. Like you're not learning Torah and therefore you're getting this naturally. But rather the Torah is gifted through them. As they're acquired through hard labor, our personal character traits change. Meaning that you'll see here that out of these 48, there's a division. The Maharal Miprag teaches that 24 out of the 48 qualities, half of the qualities, are related to the development of intellect and methodology, which is something that through toil, through hard work, a person is going to end up acquiring them. But the other 24 are supposed to sublimate a person's character and personality. In essence, to refine a person's character. Why? Why does he need to refine his character in order to get the other 24? Because it's not just about learning Torah from a book. It's about making yourself into a vessel that's pure enough to receive it. Many people can learn from books, but still remain ignorant as can be, ignorant as the wall. Sometimes I talk to some people, they tell me they went to yeshiva for 20 years. Honestly, I question if they're even Jewish. They have no knowledge whatsoever. It's really surprising to me. They went to yeshiva 20 years. You ask them, okay, so you remember this Parshah, Moshe Rabbeinu, and so on and so forth? They're like, no, I don't remember. Why do you mean? What do you mean you don't remember? You went to yeshiva 20 years. Do you know who Moshe Rabbeinu is? Sometimes they don't. Why? There's a problem with the system. There was a problem with what they were doing. Not that they didn't learn it, not that they never knew it, but rather the vessel that they've become, something happened to it. Where now this vessel actually ended up creating some type of a block where they couldn't learn anymore. They couldn't remember anymore what they learned. Somebody went to Rav Kanievsky one time and told him, Kvod Rav, I learned for 50 years. All of a sudden, I wasn't able to learn anymore. I don't know what happened, but my head, something happened. I couldn't fix it. To such an extent, they threw me out of the cold. No one wants to learn it with me anymore. No chavuta wants to learn with me. Say I have a brain that's like a tomato. Everything okay? have to stop. It's very distracting, the back and forth. Very distracting. Whatever it is, just very distracting. Just also, you, stop going back and forth. It's not a bus. Rav Kanievsky, Shechye, gave him instructions how to purify himself from eating non-kosher food. For the Rav, I'm religious. I don't eat non-kosher food. He says, but what your problem, your diagnosis, seems like you become v'nitmetim bam v'nitamtim. It says in the pasuk in the Torah that anytime you become stupid spiritually, it's because you ate non-kosher food. And then all of a sudden the person remembers, oh, you know what? I remember that when I left the kollel, I left this, I left that. I went to this person's house and we had some barbecue. And I had some questions. Maybe, I'm not really sure what kind of kosher this is. Never heard of this name, but he told me it's okay, so I said it's okay. He told me it's okay, so I said it's okay. I guess it wasn't okay. Hashem says, you eat non-kosher, you become stupid spiritually. You have a problem understanding what we're saying in a basic shiur, like what we're having right now, there's something wrong with your food. Something wrong with your food. People go to weddings, they go to parties, they go to restaurants, they eat, because it says on the wall, it says kasher. Rabbi again, Allah Shalom, says the only thing kasher in some of these places is the sign. The food for sure is not kasher. The restaurant has kasher on the wall, but the only thing that's kasher is the sign. The food is definitely not kasher. The wedding hall, it says kasher, but that's this, that, has you, K, everything in between. Only thing that's kasher is the sign. Why? Because, unfortunately, Rabotai, capitalism depends on people being naive. And capitalism also depends on people spending a lot of money and being so busy spending money that they're not going to worry about the small stuff. So when you go to some of these restaurants, you go to some of these wedding halls or bar mitzvahs, you have to ask yourself, is there really a rabbi in there with Yirat Shamayim that's overseeing how they're washing the vegetables? I'm not even talking about the meat, the shemer some meat, who knows where it came from, if it's even a kosher animal. Not talking about it. Let's assume it's a real animal. It's not a rat. Let's assume it's not something they got from the garbage. Let's assume it's kasher. It has. They'll show you the wrapper, everything, chalak, everything. You can put your skateboard on it. Everything is good. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the vegetables. People think that the only thing they have to worry about is the chicken and the meat. No. It's not just the chicken and the meat. It's the salads too. Why? Because if your salad has a few worms in it, because the people don't really care about your neshama, so they didn't really wash it like they're supposed to. They didn't put soap in it like they're supposed to. They didn't put salt in it like they're supposed to make sure that all of the things they possibly could get die or leave and so on. Hey, it's still in there. Oh, so now your salad is actually basari. It's a meat salad. Just meat of worms. That every time you eat one, it's 6 sins from the Torah. It's 6 sins from the Torah to eat a worm or some type of maggot or some type of fly. People always ask me, can I go to a vegan restaurant? It's not kosher, but it's vegan. I said, yeah, as long as you like worms and maggots and flies and cockroaches. No, they wash it. Yes, they wash it, just whatever they can see quickly. They don't wash it the kosher way with salt and soap and make sure everything is out and gone. They don't do that. Why? Who cares about you to do such a thing? Who cares about you to do such work for you? Who are you? I'm just working here. I make $20 an hour. You want me to wash it with soap? You wash it with soap. You want to wash? Come wash over here for everybody too. No one's going to wash your vegetables. Your worry shouldn't just be about meat. It should be about vegetables. That's the problem with eating out. That's the problem with going, you have to mamash, be careful. Now, of course, we depend on a system. So when you go to a restaurant, it has certain rabbinical supervision, you can rely on it. But I can tell you that some of the Chachamim, some of the tzaddikim, they don't rely on anybody. They literally don't eat out of the house. But if you know for sure that this restaurant has kashrut, and their kashrut is something that you can rely on, because their kashrut body is not just they collect checks, they're professional check collectors. They actually send somebody that supervises and is there and so on and so forth, and those people have some yirat shamayim, then you can rely on it. You don't have to worry. But unfortunately, that's not something that's so easy. It's not something that's so easy. And I can tell you myself that to order food, we like to do. Why? Because it's very, very easy. It's very difficult in our life to constantly cook with traveling, with kids, with learning, with shiurim, and so on. So once in a while, we have to order food. But I'm not going to order from just anybody. So I'm not trying to create something of a panic in the world, says, no, only eat at home, because for most people, it's not really realistic to eat only at home. But at the same token, you can't just order from anybody, and even more so, you definitely can't make leniencies in the places there's no leniency to make. If it doesn't say kosher on it, you have no permission to eat it. That's the rule. Unless this is how it came out of the ground or the tree. If the apple, that's how it looks like when it gets out of the tree, you don't need a kosher certification for an apple, or a fig, or an orange, or a potato. There's no kosher certification that's necessary for that. But if it's something that required preparation, there's ingredients in it, doesn't matter what anyone's going to tell you. If there's no kosher stamp on it, there's a reason. And that reason is none of our business. All we know is we don't want to take the risk. Why? Because if we do, we could literally lose our entire Torah. Everything you learned over the last several years, gone. In 2 seconds. One bite. That's the risk. Aside from the sin and shamayim and the problems and so on, literally a person could just become a dlat, a pumpkin. Doesn't understand anything. It's very dangerous to eat non-kosher food. But the people that have no yirat shamayim, the people that don't have any fear, they go to vegan restaurants, they go to non-kosher restaurants, even with their kippah, they have no problem. Why? Because they don't think it's a real problem. Rabbi Miponovich, alav shalom, says that people give a lot more money to poor people than they do to people that learn Torah or do KIRUV. Why? He says because the average person sees the poor person and immediately he's scared that maybe it would happen to him. Everyone is scared to be that poor guy, so they give the poor guy. They see the poor guy, he's collecting $5, $10, $100, if he's in New York, $2,000 a day, whatever he's collecting, this poor guy. In New York City, there's one guy, collects quarters. He says, quarter, 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 you got a quarter, you got a quarter, quarter. I know the whole thing by heart already, how many times I saw him. But when he takes money out of his pocket, he's got at least $5,000. He's got brand new sneakers, brand new outfits every day, but he's collecting change. It's a good business in New York City. In Florida, probably homeless. But there he probably has a bigger house than most of you in New York. So now, a person that sees this guy collecting quarters, collecting dollars, immediately gets scared. Why? I'm scared to be like him. I'm scared to be homeless. I'm scared to be poor. Rabbi Miponovich says, no one is scared to be the Talmid Chacham. Why? Because they know they have no chance of becoming one, because they don't even learn Torah. How are they going to become Talmid Chacham? That's why they don't give to the Talmid Chacham. That's why they don't give to KIRUV. That's why they don't give. Because they're not scared of it. They're not scared of all these things. People are living in denial. But everyone's scared of being homeless. It's also the reason why you see many times there are campaigns. If a person is alive, like this Ari that Zichrono Livracha, they got murdered. What was his name? Ari Feld, that got murdered. Shem Yikom Damav. I mean, he did a lot of good work. Did a lot of good work in Israel, did a lot of good work in the world, publicized Judaism, publicized Hashem's name. Certain things I agreed 100%, certain things not so much, but nonetheless, he had Yirat Shamayim and he had, Baruch Hashem tried to bring a lot of good. He had real kavanah and real mesirut nefesh. But you see, his organization wasn't like a multi-million-dollar organization. It's like a mom and pop, trying to do whatever he can with what he can. But after he died, millions of dollars were donated. Millions. I mean, he got murdered. Fine, horrible. Go donate more even if you want. That's not a problem. That's not the problem. The problem is, we all donate to dead people. Why don't you donate to living people? We tell people, listen, let's do KIRUV. Let's get people to do tshuva. They're still alive. There's hope for them. If they die, there's no more hope. $18. Oh, somebody died. Oh, 18,000. What happened? There's 3 zeros. Give it over here. Bring it over here. They're still living. That's the problem. Why? Because psychologically, the Yetzirah convinces us, no, listen, donate to the person that died. Buy the Sefer Torah for 60,000 for the person that died. Instead of giving the 60,000 to a living Sefer Torah, buy a Sefer Torah for somebody that died. Why? Because I'm scared of being dead. I'm not scared of being alive, because he thinks he's alive. This is a problem. This is what the Yetzirah tries to get us to do. A lot of big mistakes people make with their money on things that shouldn't even be a mistake. It should just be logical. But Yetzirah fools us in every way, shape, or form. Now, the other thing about these 48 things that's very, very interesting is that aside from the fact that these 24, the second half are character traits, character development, this answers the old question that many people have about loving Hashem. You know, we constantly teach about Yirat Shamayim, fear of Hashem, and the haters always talk about, what do they say? Oh, you never teach anything about loving Hashem. It's not true, but nonetheless, they say it. They write it. Oh, it's always fear, 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 fear. Well, here's the good news. Netivot Shalom says if you want to love Hashem, you have to do all 48 steps. You have to, this is how you acquire love of Hashem. Meaning, if you haven't acquired all 40 of these steps, or half of them, or 10% of them, or you still don't even know what they are yet, how could you possibly claim to possess something called loving Hashem? So with Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to learn how each one of these qualities gets us closer and closer, not only to fearing Hashem, but actually to loving Him too. And hopefully by the time we finish this Mishnah, actually get to a point where we understand at least how to get to loving Hashem Be'emet, really getting to it. It's not an easy path. Now, the reason why all of this is important is because the Midrash Rabbah, Sefer Dvarim, chapter 7, says that the Torah, and also talks about it in the Gemara, I believe in Masechet Sotah, and Masechet Ta'anit, and gives different analogies of the Torah. And one of the very famous analogies is that Torah is like mayim. Torah is like water. Torah is like water. So the Gemara says, why is the Torah like water? It says Torah is like water because naturally, no matter where you put water, it always goes down to the lowest point. If it starts on top of the mountain, the Torah continues to travel down, and of course the scientists are going to say, yeah, it's gravity, or some scientific rule they have. But yes, it is gravity, but that's not the real reason. That's the reason that they think, but there's more to it. What is this like? is that Torah is like water, because just like water travels to the lowest point, the Torah travels to the most humblest person. The person that sees themselves as the lowest. That's a person that has made themselves into a vessel where they can inherit Torah. Not lowest where they have no confidence and they think they're a loser and poor me and have a miserable life and I'm terrible. No, that does not mean you're humble. Humble is just knowing where you stand, knowing where the capabilities are, knowing what the potential is, knowing what's available out there, but also knowing you're far away from it. Most people think that they're great, but they're not getting paid right. They're suffering not because they're not good. They're suffering because no one recognizes how great they really are. Like sometimes I see people make comments on the videos. It's like, yeah, you know what? He's starting to describe me to be like Mashiach. He's describing me in this video. And what's the video about? Mashiach. He's describing me in this video. Tzaddik. I talk about tzaddikim, and they're writing on the internet, yeah, you know what? I fit a whole thing. Everything he said, it's me. Oh, so you're for sure tzaddik, because you publicize it to the world. You're a tzaddik. Reality is, Rabotai, is that it's quite the opposite. Torah comes to the most humblest person. The Chachamim say that despite Moshe Rabbeinu's speaking to Hashem face to face, his humility was so extraordinary that it's written in the Torah that he's the humblest man of all. What does it mean, a humblest man of all? It means that even when he looked at the people that had tzarat, people that they were kicked off the camp because you couldn't be next to them, they had a spiritual and physical disease. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm less than them. Not because he was some self-conscious person with no confidence and he was miserable in the corner feeling bad for himself. No! Chas v'shalom to say such a thing on Moshe Rabbeinu. It's that he saw the greatness even in the Metzorah. He saw greatness in someone that has this disease that no one else is allowed to be next to him. He saw greatness in him. He says, I'm lower than him. He's better than me. Hashem, why are you giving me a Torah? Give it to him, Metzorah. So we say, look, Hashem, everybody has Metzorah except me. I'm the biggest tzaddik. Give me the Torah. Give me money too, also, while you're at it. A person needs to make themselves into a vessel in order to acquire Torah. Because another thing that the Chachamim say, Rabbi Mendel Vitek says, Videsk, says that Torah is like mayim, is like water, because just like water, as soon as it goes into any vessel, it assumes its shape. So if you put it into a bottle, the shape of the water becomes the shape of the bottle. If you put it into a cup, same thing as the cup. If the cup was square, it will be a square water, and so on and so forth. He says this is the same thing with Torah. If the vessel, if the person is kosher with Yirat Shamayim, the Torah that will come out of them will be kosher with Yirat Shamayim. But if the person has no Yirat Shamayim, if he has terrible midot, if he's greedy, if he's evil, if he's arrogant, his Torah will be the same. Non-kosher Torah that you're not allowed to even learn. Because the Torah is like mayim. It assumes the position. Assumes the position of the vessel. Last but not least about this aspect of the Torah, is a chidush that I had. It's very interesting. That the Chachamim say here that aside from the fact that these character traits, the attainment of Torah wisdom and character development and so on, these are all the fundamentals of spiritual perfection. Meaning all 48 of these steps, which we already went over last week briefly, but we'll continue going over the next few weeks, These are the fundamental steps to become the perfect being. So aside from the fact that they're fundamental for a person's perfection, the Torah itself is acquired through them. But through the Torah, a person acquires these qualities. Meaning that you can't do one without the other. In order to acquire Torah, you have to work on your character traits. You have to make sacrifices. But in order to know that you're supposed to make sacrifices, and how to develop your character, and how to not be arrogant, and how to not be cheap, what do you need? You need Torah. Meaning, while you're going on one side, you're working on developing character. How do you develop your character? You have to learn Torah. While you're learning Torah, it's helping you develop your character. Meaning, you cannot do one without the other. If one is done without the other, there's a problem. There's a short. So if you try to, let's say, for example, read one of these self-help books, they're going to tell you, don't be angry. What is the book going to tell you ultimately? You shouldn't be angry because it's not good for other people to see you that way. You shouldn't be angry. You should just keep it to yourself. It's not going to tell you that keeping it to yourself is eventually going to make you have cancer. It's not going to tell you. You should think that there's going to be better times. And all types of other things, some of them actually make sense, but in essence they're wrong. Why are they wrong? Because it all assumes you even have the right to be angry. It all assumes that you shouldn't be angry, but if you're angry, then just work on yourself. That's the problem. You think you have the right to be angry. You have no right to be angry. Why? Who says you're running the world? What? So something is not going according to your plan, you get angry? Who are you? God runs the world. He decided this is going to happen. What are you angry about? You're angry that God ran the world the way He wants? Is something wrong with you? The more we delve into our anger, the more we delve into our day-to-day emotions, the more we realize how ridiculous we are for having such emotions. Now, how can we arrive at this confirmed knowledge to the point of action? That we're just not going to get angry. Torah. Meaning, the understanding that you shouldn't have anger, okay, we just learned a little bit now. How to achieve it, that's through Torah. Meaning that it always has to be both sides. What is this like? What's the chidush? Torah Kedosha tells us that every number, every aspect, everything has a meaning. Now there's a few numbers that are significant in the Torah. For example, anytime something is presented that's physical, it's represented by 6. Why 6? 6 is the makeup of everything that's physical. Has north, south, east, west, up and down. Everything that's physical has these 6 sides to it. North, south, east, west, up and down. Everything that's physical. 7 is the supernatural. Shabbat. It's above nature. It's above the natural. That's why Shabbat is in essence a piece of this world, a piece of Olam Haba. But 8 is complete supernatural. Infinite. Hashem. Interestingly enough, the Zohar Kadosh says that Hashem put Himself together with the Torah. Meaning that Him and the Torah are the same thing. Every letter in the Torah is His name. It's not just the names that you could recognize, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, or the Elokim, or the Amonai. No. Every letter. Aleph, you see, Bereshit, the first letter, Bet, that's the name of Hashem. The Resh on the Bet, Resh. The Resh is the second letter, also name of Hashem. And the Shin after that, also name of Hashem. Which is the reason why every time you read from Scripture, you read from the Torah, every word you read from the Torah, you're not only making the mitzvah of reading the word, you're making a mitzvah of every letter. Every letter is a mitzvah. Why? You're saying Hashem. It's like saying Hashem, 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 non-stop. So now, Rabotai Yekarim, Hashem that's infinite has a Torah that's infinite. That the Torah that we have in this world today is just the essence of Torah. The Gemara Masechet Shabbat says that Moshe Rabbeinu received the entire Torah, but what we have is the essence of the Torah. What we can use, what we can handle in our lowly level. We have the essence of it. The rest of it we're going to learn after Mashiach comes, Olam Haba. It's an endless Torah. And even the Torah that we have here is endless according to us. But the point is that there's even more than this. Now, this Torah that Hashem combined with Himself is infinite. We see here that Hashem is also infinite. Hashem requires us to work on our character traits in order to receive this infinite Torah. Like we just said, on one side, you have to work on your character traits. Why? So you can get the Torah. On the other side, you have to learn Torah in order to get the good midot, the character traits. If you look up the sign that people made up for infinity, what is it? It's an 8 on the side. It's an 8 sideways. Both representing infinity of Hashem, but also representing our whole thing that we talked about. On one side you have to get more Torah, on the other side you have to get more midot. But you can't do one or the other. It's either together or nothing works. This Rabotai is just showing us that even sometimes the actions of man are really just a Hashem pulling the strings. It's not them independent of Hashem. I found this fascinating today when I remembered, Baruch Hashem B'siyat Lishmaya, that the sign of infinity is the sideways 8, which is also 8 being representative of Hashem. How much time do we have? Okay, so we finished the intro. So now, the first of all of these is Talmud. Out of these 48, now that we understand what we're dealing with as far as this Torah, Chachamim say, first prerequisite, first quality is studying Torah. As the Torah yields itself to those who are dedicated to it. A person studies, he'll learn. But he has to know that he has to study from everyone, from everything. As long as it's a kosher source. Now, the most critical thing to know about Torah is that it's not like secular subjects, where you can just study it from books and do everything on your own. You cannot study Torah only from books. Because the Torah cannot be properly absorbed only through books, but rather it requires the instructions and guidance of a teacher. So of course you're going to learn from books. It's necessary, it's required, but if that's your only way of learning Torah, your Torah is going to be incomplete and most likely problematic. This is what the Chassid Yavet says. If you're only going to learn Torah just by reading books, you could literally be one of these people that violates Torah on a daily basis, but thinking he's making mitzvot. Because you never actually double-checked your teachings, your learnings, with some teacher that's going to tell you the truth. How do we know that having a rabbi is critical? Because even our oral Torah was specifically not written. Part of the reason was because it forces us to learn from rabbis. We had a written Torah. Everyone has access to the written Torah. But the oral Torah, only Am Yisrael has access to the oral Torah. Until it was written down, or at least part of it was written down 1,500 years ago, 1,600 years ago, it wasn't written down. So for almost 2,000 years, it was just orally. Meaning that in order for you to learn Torah, you had to go to a rabbi. You had to go to a shiur. There was no other way of learning it. Meaning that Hashem clearly designed the Torah to be learned from the rabbi. From someone that has the continuation of learning from their rabbi. From their rabbi's rabbi. From their rabbi's rabbi all the way to Moshe Rabbeinu. Which is also the reason why one of these 48 qualities is fear of the Rabbanim. Fear of the people that you learn Torah from. Why? He's the one that's continuing the lineage from Moshe Rabbeinu. How could you not be scared? This is a story I heard today from Rabbi Reuven. Gives us a little bit of perspective. What does it mean to be afraid? It's not afraid like the rabbi is going to kill you. It's not afraid like the rabbi is going to put you in punishment. Fear of the rabbis, people think that it has to do with arrogance or ego or anything like that. They seriously don't understand what does it mean. I'll give you a little bit of perspective. One of the biggest Chachamim we've had in the last few hundred years in Klal Yisrael is the Chacham Sofer. The Chacham Sofer, alav Shalom, is one of the giants among the giants. That even if you don't know much Torah, you've heard the name at some point. You may not know what he did and what he wrote, but you've heard the name at some point, Chacham Sofer, or you've probably read some of his work without even knowing it's his. Now, the Chacham Sofer learned from Rav Adler. And he used to brag about how he served his master. How he did everything possible to utilize and help his rabbi in any way, shape, or form. This was his pride. It wasn't all the books he wrote and all the Torah he learned. He goes, no, I did real serious shimush. Real serious attentive listening and paying attention and serving and helping and doing whatever I can to stay close to my rabbi. To such an extent that one time I saw my Rav, he says in a story. He says, I saw that my rabbi, Rav Adler, needed to wash his hands. But it was freezing outside. There was no water. There was just ice. There was no water. But I saw if my Rav needs to wash his hands, that means there has to be water. So I went outside and I took some ice, took some snow, and I went like this really fast. Oh, freezing your hands until I filled up a jar of water. Oh, hey, Kvod Arav, here's some water. I found some water for you. He didn't tell me, by the way, Kvod Arav, I can't feel my hands. I just nothing. He's telling this to his students. This is what he's proud of. This is his prideful moment. That this is what he was able to do for his Rav. To take some ice, lose the sense of feeling in his hands, for what? So his rabbi can wash his hands before he eats. That's it. That's it for us. For him, he says, that means I was close to my rabbi. And if I was close to my rabbi, that makes me closer to his rabbi. And closer to his rabbi's rabbi. And closer to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Mount Sinai. When a person understands what does it mean to have closeness to a rabbi, they realize that it's something that you need to have. Because if you truly believe that this rabbi possesses the Torah that's from Mount Sinai, there's nothing greater than that. Other than literally being at Mount Sinai. Other than literally being right next to the Shekhinah. You're talking to Hashem like Moshe Rabbeinu. If you believe your rabbi's Torah is from Mount Sinai, there's nothing in the world that's better than that. But that's the problem. Most people think that, yeah, it's good, but somebody else has better. I just don't know who yet. Somebody else has better, but I just don't know who yet. Oh yeah, somebody else has. The Rabbi Akiva. Yeah, but he died 2,000 years ago. He's an Olam HaEmet. He's not even talking to you. He's talking to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Olam HaEmet. He has nothing to do with you. Somebody that's alive. No, I follow the Stipler. Okay, Stipler is Kodesh Kodashim. We follow Stipler also, but He's not here. A living rabbi. Oh, I don't like my rabbi. You're here. So why is he your rabbi if you don't like him? Point is, Rabotai, people don't exert anywhere near as much effort as they need to build their shimush of the rabbi, their help of the rabbi, their learning of the rabbi. And the reason why is because sometimes we don't think that we need them. And I can tell you myself, I think I've said this at least a half a dozen times in shiurim, probably more. If it wasn't for my rabbis, most likely I'd be back in Wall Street, maybe not even keeping Shabbat. If it wasn't for my rabbis, it's very easy to be a goy. Very easy. Why? You have a big yetzara. Very easy to be a goy. Chas v'shalom, we're never going to do it because we know the emet, we know the truth. But the point is that if it wasn't for the rabbis that navigate you, that keep you in, that teach you, that give you a slap once in a while, that go here, go left, and so on and so forth, if you don't have that, it's very easy to fall off. One step, and then two, and then chas v'shalom 5. Before you know it, you're inside a hole bigger than the one you started. But it started with a small leniency. What's the big deal? I just went to a wedding that's mixed. What's the big deal? The big deal is you're not allowed. If Hashem is not allowed to go to a mixed wedding, mixed dance wedding, you're not allowed to go to a mixed dance wedding. Yeah, but my rabbi told me that. I just didn't listen. Oh, you didn't listen. Okay, so now you're in a hole. Because you started with one, going to a mixed dancing wedding, going to a mixed dancing bar mitzvah. Oh, they're only 13 years old. Okay, they're only 13 years old in Gehenom. Because their parents are fools and are making them dance at 13 years old, already starting their future with sins. Yeah, but I didn't mean to, and I didn't do this, and I didn't do that. Okay, fine, you have to do tshuva. Stop going to more events. Reality is, Rabotai, is people don't fear the sin anywhere near as much as they need to and should. And they make one sin. Next thing you know, they start thinking that the sin is not really such a big deal. How do we know? The Gemara in Masechet Arachin, page 30b, says, Aravuna says, that once a sin is repeated, we turn it in our mind into a mitzvah. Once a sin is repeated, in our mind we turn it into a mitzvah, like it's allowed. So now you went to a mixed dance wedding, and you still lived. So you figured, oh, since I'm already here, this is, you know what, let me dance too. It's boring just sitting down the whole time. So next thing you know, you're part of the party. But now you're not going to dance by yourself. That's what you did last time. Now you want to dance with a girl. Oh, it's a shidduch for the Rav. She's Jewish. She's half a Jew. You know, she's at the Jewish party. The other half, she's not Jewish. But she came to the party, though. Doesn't that make her a little bit Jewish? She came to a bar mitzvah. And you dance in the party. And then you go do, and little by little, person is married with 5 kids with a non-Jewish woman. But he made one leniency. Yes, one leniency. That's how it always starts. That's how it always starts. Why? He did not have a rabbi to slap him around and tell him, hey, Habibi, you cannot do this. You're going to ruin your eternity. You're going to ruin your eternity. The worst is when people lie to the rabbi. That's a complete waste of time. It's better off not to have a rabbi than to lie to one. What's the point if you're going to lie to one? I never understood that. Never understood, like people pretending to be righteous or pretending like they have no problems. Oh, so how you doing? Oh, Baruch Hashem, everything's good. Okay, so why'd you come to visit? What do you need at 12 o'clock at night? No, I just want to see the rabbi's okay. You could have sent me a text message. If I didn't answer you, that means everything's okay. It's just ridiculous ego getting in our way where we're just like don't know how, what, and who, and what to do. Or the worst yet is when people want to become friends with their rabbi. This is definitely a very common disease among our nation today. People want to be friends with their rabbi. High-five the rabbi. Hang out with the rabbi. Let's have coffee with the rabbi. At least once or twice a week people ask me, no, listen, for the rabbi, why don't we have coffee this week? For what? I have coffee in my house. I don't have to go to a coffee shop. Baruch Hashem, my wife, anytime I need coffee, I don't even have to ask. She makes the coffee by herself. Shtabach Shemo. Why do I need to go coffee and spend $10 on it? No, I'll buy the coffee. No, I don't need you to buy the coffee. I have one free at home. No, we can chat. What chat? I have nothing to chat about. I have to learn. You should learn also. People want to be friends. There's no time for friends. It's time for learning. It's time for doing. There's no time for friends. It's nothing personal. There's just no time. If you're trying to get to Olam Haba, there's no time to have friends. Your only friend should be your wife, your husband. That's pretty much it. Everybody else, try to make the best out of the relationship to do some type of learning with them, or else it's a waste of time relationship. We're trying to get to Olam Haba, Rabotai. Don't you understand? It's so easy to lose it. Needless to say, it's hard to attain it. There's just no time to waste on going to coffee shops just to chit-chat. Now, if you're going to a coffee shop or a dinner or something to talk about some big plans, you're going to build another building, it's going to be full of Torah, and okay, then that's fine. Okay, you want to do it at a coffee shop because it makes your coffee, makes you, make decisions better? No problem. The steak makes it, check, right a little faster? No problem. But if you just want to chit-chat, there's just no time. There's no time. Any person that values their time knows this very clearly. I remember that I've told you many times about how Rav Ovadia, alav Shalom, how much he valued his time. I heard another story from Rav Ephraim. Gave me a little bit more perspective. You know, each time you get a little diamond and it's just another piece to the puzzle. And Rav Ovadia, alav Shalom, used to have presidents, mayors, whatever, rich people, everybody that was somebody would try to get to talk to him for 2 minutes. And hopefully they get a little slap on the face because it was his charisma and his good nature to make you feel good, make you feel at home. You know what? He was a very friendly person. But if you didn't fear him, there's something wrong with you. Because you didn't realize what he has, how much Torah he has. So one time, Rav Ephraim and his family went to go see the Rav. There was a line. There's a certain time during the day or during the week that he would allow for people to come see him, and he would talk to each person for, a few seconds, a minute, whatever, depending what the problem is. And if he liked you, he gave you a little chapcha on the face, a little slap on the face, and everybody that got it, they never washed their face again. Why? Moshe Rabbeinu of the generation just touched my face. I'm never washing it again. Imagine, Moshe Rabbeinu shook your hand. Wow. You just look at your hand. Not only not wash it, I would just look at my hand. Like it's a Sefer Torah. Wow, Moshe Rabbeinu touched my hand. Look guys. I don't even have to talk to you anymore. I don't have to teach you anymore. Moshe Rabbeinu touched my hand. That's enough for you to listen to everything I say. Moshe Rabbeinu touched my hand. But anyway, enough with my silliness. When people actually got a little slap from Rav Ovadia, it was a sign that he liked them. And people would go to him to get advice, serious advice. And sometimes you would see, many times you would see really, really important people in the world waiting on the same line like everybody else. One time they had Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, come with his people while Rav Ovadia was learning with his chavuta. And Netanyahu is a president. He's used to people giving him, kissing his hand. President, he's like the Trump of Israel. Wherever he goes, there's cameras, there's paparazzi, there's everything. All of a sudden he arrives at the little room of Rav Ovadia, and Rav Ovadia doesn't get up, doesn't look at him, continues to learn like as if he's not there. 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. He doesn't even raise his hand to look at him and his paparazzi that he has and his little entourage that he has. There's a lot of people in the room. Rabbi Ovadia is learning as if nobody's there. And eventually they started feeling uncomfortable. It's like, the Rav probably doesn't know you're here. Yeah, but he's right next to you. He's in his Torah. He's inside his Torah. This is actually, you can see this stuff on the internet if you want. He's inside his Torah. He's not with us. We have to tell him that you're here. He says, if he is that deep in the Torah, don't bother him. Don't bother him. He respected it. Don't bother him. He must didn't recognize that the person that was supposedly the most important one, at least government-wise, in Israel, was sitting next to him with a bunch of people. Why? He was inside his Torah. So one time, Rav Ephraim and his family went to go see Rav Ovadia, and suddenly they saw one of these very famous, powerful government officials, I think it was some type of general or whatever he was, I forgot the name, ran out of the room with a fear like some tragedy just happened. He's telling everybody, I'm sorry, guys, that's it. It's done for the day. It's done. It's done. It's a big problem, Rabotai. Something happened. Everybody got scared. What happened? What happened? Someone just wasted 10 minutes with Rav Ovadia. Someone just stole 10 minutes of his time of learning. And the Rav is upset. Why? 10 minutes was wasted. No more Rav Ovadia for today. Anyone wants to come? Next time. Because 10 minutes was wasted. 10 minutes. 10 minutes was, can you even imagine not wasting 10 minutes? At least every 10 minutes? We waste 10 minutes every 10 minutes. But someone that becomes a Gdolado, he cannot afford to waste 10 minutes. Cannot afford to waste 10 minutes. Cannot afford to play on WhatsApp just to see what everybody else is saying in the groups. Cannot afford to go on Facebook with no actual mission or purpose, just to see what's being posted. Cannot afford to call his friend just to see how you doing. You want to have some coffee? Or some salad with a shiur Torah in between? There's no time. There's no time. Why? Learning is much more valuable. These are some of the things that are literally prerequisites to the 48. We haven't even gone to the 48. When it comes to learning Torah, the number one most important aspect of it is literally the mesirut nefesh, the sacrifice. Without sacrifice, there's simply no Torah. No one's going to learn. No one's going to do tshuva. Nothing new will come to the world. There's no chidushim. There's nothing, no new insights. Literally, a person can look at the Torah, chas v'shalom, and see it no different than a Harry Potter book. Why? He didn't sacrifice anything to read Harry Potter. He's not sacrificing anything to learn Torah. He sees the two as the same thing. But this, Rabotai, is the tragedy that we live in today, where people think that the Torah is just like anything else. The Chassid Yavitz wrote a book called Or HaChaim. Or HaChaim, there's other books named that Or HaChaim, but the Chassid Yavitz was Kodesh Kodashim. I've told you about it many times before. And in his book, he spends extensively a rebuke against Talmidei Chachamim, people that learned Torah, went to the best kollel, went to the best yeshiva, came from a good family, that left the kollel to go attain degrees in philosophy and medicine and all types of other things. They went to university. Why? They wanted a career. They wanted a career in the world, so they went to university. Chassid Yavitz, a living Sefer Torah, writes an entire book rebuking these people. And he says, you left the Holy Queen to go give a hug to a dirty Goya. You left the holy queen of the Torah, Hashem's daughter. To what? To go give a hug to some Nazi and learn their philosophy. Now, of course, there are many good non-Jews in the world. This is not pertaining specifically to Jew versus non-Jew. This is an analogy of somebody who simply does not understand the value of Torah. You left the holy Torah to go learn philosophy? To go become a doctor? The only people that should become doctors are the ones that seriously have no clue what it even means to be a Talmid Chacham. But you went to be a doctor, you left the Torah for that. If you could do both, like the Rambam, do both. But in today's world, very few can. In today's world, very few can. Most people have to make a choice. Sometimes I hear guys that learn Torah, they're in their 20s, they're in a kollel, like, yeah, I'm going to finish kollel next year, and then I'm going to go back to school. And it always baffles me. What kind of Torah are you learning that you could even imagine yourself without it? How could you be learning this Torah for 20 years, but then just say, no, I'm only doing this until I finish. Somehow you could finish. And then I could go to university and be surrounded by immodesty, kfirah, heresy of all kinds and everything else, and I'm okay with that. What's wrong with that mentality? Or people say, no, I'm going to one of these universities that call themselves Jewish, but they have men and women on the same campus. What's Jewish about it? It's no different than the Goyim. Oh, so they teach some religious classes? I learned religious classes in Binghamton University. There's nothing Jewish about it. It's a state university. The only difference between Jewish universities and other ones is whether it's pure or not. Meaning, it either has to be only men or only women. There's immodesty, there's no university, there's nothing Jewish about that. The learning, you want to learn Torah as a man, go to a kollel. You don't need to go to a university. You want to learn a career? Why you learn Torah? You don't have to go to school, just go take online classes. Meaning, even if you need to attain some type of degree for some type of career that you want at some point, there's still never a reason. Hashem created a world that is so accommodating that He literally created a world that you literally don't need to leave your house and put yourself in danger. You want to get a doctorate degree? You could get a doctorate degree online. Yeah, but if I get it from Harvard, it's much better than getting it online. Yeah, but in the end, by the way, whether you killed a patient or not, no one really cares where you graduated from. If you killed a patient, it doesn't make a difference if you graduate a 4.0 or a 3.0. You still killed the guy. If you did good and you worked hard and you saved the patient, no one actually looks at your resume. It's like, yeah, of course. He came from Guantanamo Bay, this guy. So of course he'd save people. No, the guy from Harvard saved. No one cares. The resume is to get the job. The resume is to get the job. But if you realize that Hashem is the one that's dictating everything, you don't need to put yourself at risk. You don't need to. You simply don't need to. These are some of the things that are necessary for a person to learn. A person needs to do everything possible to make the sacrifices necessary in order to inherit Torah, in order to acquire it, in order to become the right vessel. We'll finish with one last point, which is the second point here, which is Shmiat HaOzen. Attentive listening is a second character trait, is a second quality, actually, I should say, that a person needs to have in order to acquire Torah. Attentive listening. Now, of course, a person that plays with their phone during a shiur, or reads a book during a shiur, or is talking to somebody else during a shiur, or is simply not paying attention to the shiur, this specific character trait is talking about them. Dafka. It's called Shmiat HaOzen. Shmiat HaOzen, attentive listening. But the Hebrew language specifically uses the word ozen. Ozen means ear. Why? Because the Chachamim explained to us that when a person has some type of damage in his body, he can cover it usually with one Band-Aid would cover it. but there's only few exceptions where you need a few. One of them is the ear. Why? Because you have two of them. You have two of them. But despite what we think that vision is more critical than hearing, it's actually the opposite. Although your vision will give you lots of pleasure, the amount of changes that a person has to endure without hearing is much more significant than being blind. This is why the Gemara says in Bava Kama, page 85b, that if a master hits his servant and causes him to lose an eye, causes him to become blind, he has to pay him the value of an eye. Whatever it costs to have vision. But if he causes him to be deaf, he has to pay him a value of his entire self, meaning a human being. Why? Because the impact on a person that's deaf is much, much more severe than an impact on a person that's blind. Much, much more severe. Now, aside from this, it's important that a person knows that to listen carefully is our only chance of actually learning Torah. If you have a rabbi that you're learning from, and you don't pay attention to him, even if he's the biggest rabbi of the generation, if you're not paying attention, it's a complete waste of time, and it's also most likely a sin from the Torah for you to do it. One of the former Gedolei Hador used to say that there's different levels of bitul Torah. There's different levels of wasting Torah time, which is a sin from the Torah. One of them is not learning to your full potential. Not just not learning, but not learning to your full potential. That meaning that you were able to learn Gemara, you have the head for it, you have the energy for it, but you were just too lazy, so you wanted to just learn some stories. You learned Torah. It's just not the same level you were supposed to. That's also a form of bitul Torah. I would say it's no different than if a person watches a shiur, he has the ability to pay full attention to the shiur, but he decides that he's going to listen to sports on the side also, or he's going to read the news too at the same time while he's watching a shiur, or he's going to play cards while he's doing a shiur. Meaning, it's like, it's the shiur is there, but his head isn't. His head isn't. If you're not listening, you're disrespecting the Torah. And the Gemara in Masechet Megillah says, how long does it take a Talmid to truly understand what his rabbi said? The Gemara says 40 years. Where do we learn it from? Am Yisrael only began to understand what Moshe Rabbeinu initially told them after he died. Meaning he was alive with them for 40 years. And he told them a lot of things. But they only began to see what his value was and what he said and what he meant after he died. And Chazal teaches from here is that it takes a person literally 40 years of repeating the first shiur until he understands it. 40 years of repeating the second shiur until he understands what it really meant. Yes, he's going to understand certain aspects of it. But to understand the whole point, why he mentioned it, how he mentioned it, and all of the different things that the rabbi actually said, 40 years. 40 years. I know, for example, I said this a few times in Shiurim, that till this day, it's been, I don't know how many years, 7, 8 years, since my first conversation with Rabbi Ephraim, I'm still trying to learn every aspect of the first shiur we had, which was about the first story, not even the whole shiur. The first story he told me about Yehuda and Tamar. Why did he choose this? Why did he, there's a lot of stories, Baruch Hashem. Why did you choose Yehuda and Tamar? And every time I think about it, Baruch Hashem b'siyad d'ishmaya, I have another reason of why he chose this one. And I've already learned there's at least a dozen different laws we can learn just from the reason of why he picked this story. Not from the story itself. That you can learn the whole Torah from. From the reason of why he picked the story, you can learn 12 different laws. So when a person understands that, hey, this rabbi possesses Torah, he's my connection to Mount Sinai, you're going to pay attention. If he's not your connection to Mount Sinai, then why are you listening to him? Go find Moshe Rabbeinu. Go find your Moshe Rabbeinu. You have to find your Moshe Rabbeinu. You have to find someone that's going to connect you to Mount Sinai. Someone asked me, last point, someone asked me a question yesterday. It's a very, very important question. Young kid, maybe 14, 15 years old. I have a group of young guys that go to yeshiva that ask really good questions, Baruch Hashem. And one of the questions he asked me is really a question that shouldn't be. It's not his fault, but it shouldn't be this question. And he asked me, what's better to learn, Mussar or Chassidut? That's the question. If I had to choose to learn Mussar or Chassidut, which one should I learn? Does anybody want to volunteer an answer? Chazak u'baruch. Real Chassidut is Mussar, meaning there is no difference. There's no difference between the two. The fact that you think that there is a difference means that you've heard it from somebody telling you, no, we don't teach Mussar here. We teach Chassidut. And that means that the person that says we teach Chassidut, not Mussar, he does not know Chassidut. Not only he doesn't know Mussar, he doesn't know Chassidut. Because Chassidut is Mussar. With some hats. And a jacket. And a few above and beyond amazing things. But in fact, it is Mussar. To think that the two are different simply means you don't know either one. So what's the real answer to this? The real answer is, it has nothing to do with Mussar or Chassidut. It has to do with where are you getting the information? What's the vessel that's providing you this information? What's the vessel that's teaching you Mussar? What's the vessel that's teaching you Chassidut? If the vessel is full of Yirat Shamayim, full of sources, limited opinion, and is teaching you what the books say, makes no difference, Mussar or Chassidut. But if the source is the opposite, has no Yirat Shamayim, is extremely opinionated and wants you to know it, gives you chidushim about the Torah that have nothing to do with Torah at all, he gives you sources that come from newspapers, then not only you're not allowed to learn Chassidut from him, not only you're not allowed to learn Mussar from him, most likely you're not even allowed to learn the news from him. So it all has to do with the vessel, not necessarily the teaching. Because so long as it's Torah, Hashem's name gets sanctified. You're going to learn and hear the things you need to learn and hear, as long as you're an attentive listener. But if the vessel is unkosher and he starts telling you things that are against the Torah, then Hashem Yerachem. Gemara Masechet Moed Katan says you're not allowed to learn from somebody that has bad midot, has no Yirat Shamayim. Not allowed to learn from him. He's lo agun. He's not a fair character. You're not allowed to learn from such a person. So when it comes to Mussar, sometimes I've heard people lately, it's become more popular for people to start putting titles on their lectures saying Mussar. Mussar is becoming reborn. The problem is that they're definitely not teaching Mussar. They may be teaching you how to walk your dog. Maybe they're teaching you how to eat at McDonald's. But they're not teaching you Mussar. So just because somebody has a title that says Mussar doesn't mean it's Mussar. The way you know it's Mussar is, number one, it's not going to be such a happy-go-lucky lecture where every single second you're going to be reminded how righteous you are. Mussar is rebuke in order to perfect you into the diamond that you can be, not that you are. That's what Mussar is. It's fire. That's what Mussar is. Rabbi Ovadia Alav HaShalom wrote a letter when he was 16 years old. 16 years old. They published a letter recently. And in this letter he says, Lama lo tira michamat achshuv. why aren't you going to be scared from the heat of Gehinnom? He was 16 years old. And he wrote a letter to who? To himself. Why aren't you scared of Gehinnom enough? And learning all the time, not just 24 hours a day. He writes a letter to himself, telling himself, Mussar, why are you not scared of the heat of Gehinnom? Chamat means fire, heat. Where's the heat coming from? You think it's coming from what? From the sun? Not that sun, different sun. He writes a letter when he's 16 years old. Why? Because that's Mussar, that's Chassidut, that's the same, that's Torah. Rashi says Mussar and Torah means the same exact thing. It's a synonym, is what we call it in English. Same thing. So a person something can see who's teaching him what. Where's the source for what they say? If you see that person's talking, no sources coming from anywhere, and a lot of the things that he says obviously are his opinion, or he just says, no, the Baal Shem Tov says, and the Chassidut says, and he just says names, but no actual page numbers, no real sources. Even after you ask him, do you have a source for it? He says, yeah, I'll get back to you when Mashiach comes. I'll get back to you when I have nothing else to do in the world. I'll get back to you when you send me a check for $10,000. I'll tell you thank you. Like, he doesn't actually get back to you with real answers, or the answers are not sufficient. Then you know he's not teaching Mussar, he's not even teaching Chassidut, he's teaching nothing. So it's all about the vessel. If the vessel is good, if the vessel is clean, if the vessel is pure, learn as much as you possibly can from this vessel, whatever the vessel is willing to teach you. If the vessel is impure, run away as far as you possibly can. Why? Because if you touch an impure vessel, you become impure. Any questions? Yes?
Yeah, I heard it say somewhere that says you're not allowed to sell going a piece of land in Israel. It says if a goy wants to sell land in Israel, you're allowed to violate Shabbat to buy a land from it.
In Israel, yes.
I thought you were only allowed to violate Shabbat for Pikuach Nefesh.
It's considered Pikuach Nefesh. Because a goy owning land in Israel is putting the people of Israel in danger. In fact, if you have, for example, somebody that you know is about to go and convert to Christianity, convert to idolatry, and she's going to do it, or he's going to do it on Shabbat, you're going to go dip in the river or something, thinking they're going to convert. Not only are you allowed, it's a mitzvah for you to drive a car and go disturb it and do everything you can to stop this person from converting. Because even though it's not their physical life at risk, it's much worse. Their spiritual life is at risk. So you're allowed to violate Shabbat to stop a conversion to Christianity or anything like that. When it comes to land in Israel, it's both spiritual and physical danger to the Jewish people. When a Christian person owns land today in the land of Israel, it's both spiritual and physical danger for the Jewish people. Because they're not there because they like Jews. They're there because they're looking to convert Jews. So each time, in between the yawns, each time they actually have these Christian people buying land, it's not only putting the Jewish people physically at risk, it's putting them at spiritual risk. And that's why today the Christians don't even hide the fact that they're missionizing in the state of Israel every day. They set up little booths, they go out there, speak to the public. In the old days they would hide it. They would be in closed rooms, in little hallways and so on. Now it's in the open. They have entire organizations, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram, and they do it. So anyone that sells land in Israel to a Christian is violating the Torah. So Isur from the Torah is worse than eating pig. Worse than eating pig. You want to sell your land in America, in Zimbabwe, in Africa somewhere, in Australia, to anyone, doesn't make a difference. But to sell something to in the land of Israel to a non-Jew, very, very serious problem. Very serious problem. And unfortunately, it's been done, and today there's probably more land owned in Israel by Goyim than Jews. But that's because we are, the land of Israel is full of people that are Jewish, but they don't necessarily keep Judaism. So they don't understand that the God of Israel is much more important than the God of money. So, unfortunately, it's a problem. Yes?
Technically, shouldn't we not allow churches to be in Israel and all of Israel also?
We're not even allowed to have them in there, of course. But
So how is it that we have churches in Israel?
I just answered that.
Yeah, I know.
So why are you asking? Next question.
The other rules of Catholics for Jews, that the impact of eating non-kosher, they could also have a problem on a person on his way to converting instead of the kosher food and then he's living forever.
Kashrut, from my knowledge, is only something that's meant for Jews. So if a goy that's just a righteous noahide wants to eat kosher food, there's no problem with it. Aside from being physically healthier, I'm not sure. I've never heard of it having any spiritual effect on him. But if he's a person that's looking to convert to Judaism, then he definitely needs to eat kosher food. Not necessarily because of the spiritual impact it will have on him, but rather because he has to get himself used to it. So for example, many of the mitzvot that a person does while they're converting, they don't get any extra credit in Shamayim for doing it. So if a person that's in the process of converting laced tefillin, or she lights candles for Shabbat, or they keep 99% of Shabbat, they don't get, oh yeah, this one's going to get, I don't know, $1 billion in Shamayim because he kept 99% of Shabbat, or he put on tefillin. They don't get that. Why? Because right now it's just practice. It's practice. You don't get the trophy for going to practice. You get a trophy for winning the actual race. But the practice is necessary for game time. If you don't practice, eventually you'll lose the game. If you practice, eventually you'll win the game. So anyone says, no, I thought I was getting reward for doing it. I can't believe it. I don't have the desire to do it anymore. I say, Baruch Hashem, don't do it anymore. Stay a goy. Why? Because you were going to become a bad Jew anyway. If that's the way you think, that you're only going to do stuff because of reward, don't convert. It's better to stay a goy. Why? Because most of Judaism is not going to give you rewards in this world. It'll give you rewards in the next world, which eventually is hard to fathom unless you're glued to Hashem. So the point is that a person that's in the process of converting should eat kosher, should keep the mitzvot 99% in accordance to what their rabbi tells them to do and what they're allowed to do. But always remember that this is practice. This is practice. Like I have a student, for example, that right now he's in the last stage of converting. Until now, he would wear a hat. And he would pray at home and so on. But now he's at the next stage. We tell him, okay, you have to start going to shul every day, not just on Shabbat. On top of it, you have to put a kippah on and wear tzitzit, but keep the tzitzit inside. The tzitzit only goes outside once you finish the converting. But start wearing tzitzit now. And start going to shul now. And start wearing the kippah now. Why? We're in the last stage of the conversion, and now you have to pretty much look and feel like a Jew. Look and feel like a Jew. Because there's literally minor things that take place with this specific person. Other people, I tell them, please don't put a tzitzit on. Please don't put a kippah on. Please just learn by yourself and try not to go to shul. Try not to go to shul. Why? Because they're still in the early stages where I don't even know if they're ever going to make it yet. So that's why it's important to have a rabbi that knows who you are. The problem is that people lie a lot. And they pretend to be much more righteous than they are. And they pretend to do things that they really do. And it ends up being a big problem. So, I had this a few times with issues with people that lie. And I have to drop them. I have to just say, okay, listen, I not only I can't, I don't want to help you. I don't want to help. Not I can't, I don't want to. Why? You're a liar. So it's one of the things that you simply cannot do anything with anyone that's a liar. So as long as someone is not lying to themselves and is not pretending like they're getting some type of Gan Eden for their practice mitzvot, then they should do them. But as soon as a person starts thinking that they're getting a reward in heaven for keeping 99% of Shabbat and 99% of the fast and 99% of the tefillin, and 99% of kosher, and they're doing a lot of things. As soon as they start thinking that they're getting a reward for it, you know what that's going to happen? They're never going to convert. Why? I'm already getting most of the stuff, just no punishments. I'm already getting most of the reward, just no punishments. Because if I decide I want to drive on Shabbat, since I'm technically still a non-Jew, I can drive on Shabbat. But if I want to keep Shabbat, I get a reward. So what happens? They create a new religion. They create a new religion. This is important for people. That's why it's important to know the human psychology. It's important to know how the human mind works. Why? Because it's ra. There's evil in it. It's always going to try to manipulate something. And that's why there are thousands upon thousands of people around the world that watched a few YouTube videos of people that call themselves rabbis, and they started acting like Jews while remaining goyim, with no intention or plan or even a possibility of ever converting to be a Jew. And this is a very big problem, because the Rambam says that such a person is called a thief in Shamayim. And a thief cannot go to Gan Eden. A thief cannot go to Gan Eden. They stole mitzvot. They created a new religion. You can't keep those mitzvot because you think you're getting a reward for them. You're not getting a reward for them. There are a few mitzvot that you are getting a reward for them, but that's you would get even if you weren't converting. Like, for example, the reward for tzedakah, or for controlling your having good midot, that you get whether you're a Jew or you're a non-Jew. That you get whether you're in a process of converting or you're not in the process of converting. So, giving tzedakah and working on your character traits and specific type of learning that pertain to you, that you get a reward for. But the specific mitzvot of Am Yisrael, only reward for them is once you become a Jew. As long as a person understands that, it's good. It's a healthy conversion. If a person already thinks that they're getting a reward for things that they're not even supposed to do, and it's really practice, they think that they're getting paid for practice, it's a very, very big problem. It could create a very big obstacle for them once it comes time to convert, because the Yetzer Hara is going to start working in their heads like, why should I convert? I'm already getting a reward for it. Just no punishment. I have a better world, better circumstance than the Jew. So it's important to have a real rabbi that's not going to create rules for you. And it's just one that's going to tell you what it is, even though sometimes it's hard to hear, but it's a necessary truth. Next. Punishment is for everybody. That Hashem is, Baruch Hashem, very kind with. Reward also. There's a reward for a lot of things, just that there's reward for specific things. Yes, well, it's yes and no. So, a person that is a noahide and is going to remain a noahide, meaning he has she has no intention to convert, has a different set of rules than a person that's in the process of converting. Why? A person that's a noahide and is planning on remaining a noahide is only allowed to learn specific things from the Torah. They're only allowed to learn the Tanakh, basic commentary, and Mussar, develop their character traits. They're never allowed to learn about the mitzvot of Am Yisrael. They're never allowed to learn specific issues within the Gemara and the oral Torah. They're supposed to learn things that affect them pertaining directly, which is how to become a better noahide, how to not become a murderer, how to not commit adultery, how to not worship another god, and so on and so forth. So they have to learn about those things. They're not allowed to learn about things that have nothing to do with them, because that could lead them to create a new religion, which is a problem of itself. If they violate one of those rules, the problem with a noahide is that any rule that they violate, it's a heavenly death penalty. What does it mean, heavenly death penalty? No one kills them in the middle of the street, but Hashem judges them accordingly. That it could potentially take away years from their life. It could even eventually lead them to die early, prematurely, or having children that die, or so on. But that's somebody that's repeatedly making these sins and repeatedly going against the Torah knowingly. It's not just anybody that accidentally makes a mistake. But the point is that, yes, the judgment is very heavy on non-Jews that violate the Torah, or at least their aspect of it. On the other hand, a non-Jew that's in a process of converting, you're allowed to teach them everything. Oral Torah, written Torah, specific mitzvot, everything you could teach them. Meaning you could literally treat them as if they are 100% Jewish right now. There's no limitation to how much you can teach them. In fact, you have to treat them with specific care and kindness and be careful and so on. But the point is that you have to, in today's world, it's very, very difficult to assess who's a real convert and who's a fake one. Most people in general are fake, even if they don't know it themselves. Most people in general are fake. They want to convert theoretically until it becomes difficult, where they have to move, or they have to spend more money, or they have to make certain sacrifices that they're not willing to make. So most people are not going to make it anyway. But the ones that do, again, it doesn't just because somebody can convert doesn't necessarily mean they should. There are certain people that are able to convert as far as knowledge, able to convert as far as certain types of mitzvot that are easy for them, but no normal rabbi should convert them. Why? Because they're just not good people. They're not converting for the right reason. They're converting for business reasons, marriage reasons. It's not for Torah. It's not for Hashem. So this is why it's important also to develop a close relationship with a rabbi. This is also why there's so much politics and red tape when it comes to conversion in the Beit Din. Either way, it's if a person is a righteous convert, is in a process of converting for real, and he or she is trying to do it for the good reason, then you're allowed to teach them everything, and they have to make sure that they convert. Ultimately, they convert whenever Hashem opens the door and allows them to convert. They should convert immediately without delay on their end. Like when I say without delay, people think that they should start, busting the chops of every rabbi that just to get them to convert. Like people think that they should. When I say convert as soon as possible, that means you start sending text messages with panic messages. No, I have to go to the Beit Din tomorrow. You send a shiur. You send a shiur. I should convert as soon as possible. No, I said as soon as possible for you, not as soon as possible for somebody else. Meaning that if the rabbi decides you're ready to convert, you should not delay it. If you don't have money, go borrow it. If you have to move, move right away. If you have to make sacrifices, make sacrifice right away. There should be no delay on your end. But as far as the rabbi and the Beit Din that's converting you, don't ask them about it, bichlal. Don't try to pressure them and think that's going to help you. It's not. If anything, it's scary. If anything, it's scary. And that's what people simply don't understand. Yes, technically, we should want people to convert tomorrow. And technically, the halacha is we should already convert them today. But that is in a different world. In a world where people actually have no benefit in converting. That halacha was for a time where they were killing Jews in the middle of the street. Today, to be a Jew has certain privileges. So some people want to convert for those privileges. That's a reality. So you can't just decide to convert people overnight. You have to know them. It takes time, takes effort. Either way, you should know that it's not supposed to be easy. If it's easy, there's usually something wrong with it. Anything else? B'seder Rabotai, we have another shiur tomorrow night. B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to continue the Mishnah. We're going to talk about the next couple of things, which is Arichat Sfatayim, Binat Alev, Sichlut Alev, the articulate speech, how to speak, what to say, to who, what, when, and how, intuitive understanding, discernment, Yirat Shamayim, awe, reverence, modesty. There's many, many other things, B'ezrat Hashem. For now, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'Amen.
Don't we believe that in Judaism that a deaf person is foolish and a blind person is like dead?